Hey, class, welcome back. We are talking about the Cold War. We're continuing. We're talking about communism, how communism came about, what started it, why America was afraid of communism during this time period. So, communism is a type of government. It's a type of government, like the United States is a democracy. Uh, Communism then it was a type of government where pretty much the government owned and did everything for the people. So that's what we're talking about today, communism. So, uh, like I said, it's a type of government and philosophy, and it's the goal is to form a society where everything is shared equally, but it does not always work out. It's proven time and time again not to work that way. So, but the idea is where everything is shared equally. Uh, in a communist government, the government owns and controls mostly everything: property, means of production, education, transportation, agriculture. They control every aspect of people's everyday lives for the most part. So, and like I said, the goal of it is for everything to be the same, people to make the same, no one to have more than the other person. And Karl Marx is the one who came up with this, and that's who we're going to talk about on the next page.
What is communism? Communism is a type of government and philosophy. Its goal is to form a society where everything is shared equally. All people are treated equally, and there is little private ownership. In a communist government, the government owns and controls most everything, including property, means of production, education, transportation, and agriculture.
This man right here, this is Karl Marx. He's considered the father of communism. He was a German philosopher and economist. He wrote about it, his ideas in a book called The Communist Manifesto in 1848. People took his ideas, his theories, and they became known as Marxism. He described 10 important aspects of a communist government in his book, The Communist Manifesto. Karl Marx, that's his name.
Karl Marx. Karl Marx is considered the father of communism. Marx was a German philosopher and economist who wrote about his ideas in a book called The Communist Manifesto in 1848. His communist theories have also become known as Marxism. Marx described 10 important aspects of a communist government.
All right, there's the 10 important aspects of a communist government. Number one, no private property. No one could own any private property. There was a single central bank that everybody went to. High income tax that would rise significantly as you made more. So if you were a business that made more, you were going to have a very, very high income tax. All property rights would be confiscated. So the government would own those properties and own your property rights. No inheritance rights. So everything would go to the government when someone passed away.
10 aspects of a communist government. No private property. A single central bank. High income tax that would rise significantly as you made more. All property rights would be confiscated. No inheritance rights.
The government would also own and control all communication and transportation. So if you had a phone, it was owned by the government. They could listen in on whatever they wanted to. All right. They owned all transportation. All right. To and from wherever. You didn't own any kind of cars that were considered a government car. They would own and control all education. If you went to school, when you went to school, the government was one in control of that education. They would own and control factories, agriculture, farming, and regional planning would be run by the government. They tightly control labor. All right. They gave you your job. You didn't get to pick your job. They gave you your job. You know, but in America, we get to go and like Mr. Sean's a teacher. I chose to be a teacher. All right. Well, they would give you your job in the communist government.
Aspects continue. The government would own and control all communication and transportation. The government would own and control all education. The government would own and control factories and agriculture. Farming and regional planning would be run by the government. The government would tightly control labor.
These are the 10 aspects that Karl Marx of a communist government. So where did communism begin? Communism began in Russia with the rise of the Bolshevik Party, and it was led by this man right here, Vladimir Lenin. They led this 1917 October Revolution. It overthrew the current government in Russia, and they took power. And he was a follower of the Marxist philosophies, and his views on government became known as Marxism-Leninism. Right here, Vladimir Lenin.
Communism in Russia. Communism began in Russia with the rise of the Bolshevik Party, led by Vladimir Lenin. They led the 1917 October Revolution that overthrew the current government and took power. Lenin was a follower of Marxist philosophies. His views on government became known as Marxism-Leninism.
All right. So Russia will become known as the Soviet Union. In World War II, Russia sided with the Allied powers in order to help defeat Germany and Adolf Hitler. All right. Joseph Stalin was the leader at the time. Stalin hated Adolf Hitler because he stabbed him in the back. And we've talked about all this when we talked about World War II. So after the war of the Soviet Union, they took control of several countries in Eastern Europe, and they became known as the Eastern Bloc. All right. So then the Soviet Union became one of the world's two superpowers along with the United States. And for years, they fought the West in what today is called the Cold War. And that's what we're talking about now is the Cold War. Right, here's the Soviet Union when it was all together. Eventually, it got broke up into 15 different countries.
Becoming the Soviet Union. Russia became known as the Soviet Union. In World War II, Russia sided with the Allied powers in order to help defeat Germany and Adolf Hitler. However, after the war, the Soviet Union took control of several countries in Eastern Europe. They became known as the Eastern Bloc. The Soviet Union became one of the world's two superpowers along with the United States. For many years, they fought the West in what is today is called the Cold War.
All right. Another communist country is China. Another major country to be ruled by a communist government is China. The Communist Party gained control after winning the Chinese Civil War. They took over mainland China in 1950, and this man right here, Mao Zedong, was the leader of the Communist China for many years. And the type of communism in China at the time is often called Maoism, and it's heavily based off of Marxism. So China is another communist country. Another communist country is Northern Korea, or North Korea, led by Kim Jong-un. So I don't talk about it in here, but that's another communist country around the world right now.
Communist China. Another major country to be ruled by the communist government is China. The Communist Party gained control after winning the Chinese Civil War. The communists took over mainland China in 1950. Mao Zedong was the leader of communist China for many years. This type of communism in China at the time is often called Maoism. It was also heavily based off of Marxism.
All right. So the actual results of communism, all right, of communist governments, they've been nothing like the theories of Marxism. Marxism, everything's supposed to be equal. Everybody's supposed to be treated equally. But that never seems to pan out with communism. All right. The low class people that were supposed to be helped by Marxism were treated horribly by the leaders of the government. For example, Joseph Stalin here. All right. It's estimated that Soviet Union leader Joseph Stalin, he had over 40 million people murdered for the good of the state. For the good of the state, he murdered 40 million people. He created labor camps for anyone who disagreed with the government, and he created famines in order to break the will of people and gain total control. So he would starve people out. In other words, the government gives us food. Well, we're just not going to give food to them right now, and we're going to starve them out. So over 40 million people is estimated. He murdered over 40 million people. Think about that. All right. The United States has 350 million people in it. All right. That would be, Miss John's not a math person, okay, but that's a lot of people. 40 million.
Actual results. The actual results of communist governments have been nothing like the theories of Marxism. The low-class people that were supposed to be helped by Marxism were treated horribly by the leaders of the government. For example, it's estimated that Soviet Union leader Joseph Stalin had over 40 million people murdered for the good of the state. Stalin created labor camps for anyone who disagreed with the government. He even created famines in order to break the will of the people and gain total control.
So the actual result, communism doesn't work very good because the leaders in charge usually don't treat their people the way they're supposed to be treated with the Marxist theories. All right. The communist states generally have much less freedom. They prevent the practice of religion, order certain people to work certain jobs, prevent people from moving around or moving to other countries, and people lose all rights to ownership, and government officials become incredibly powerful in the communist government. So that was one thing that scared Americans during all of this. Okay, well, they didn't want all these freedoms lost either. All right. And when we go back and we talk, next thing we're going to talk about would be the Red Scare. I may talk about Joseph Stalin first. I can't remember which one is right in the order, but when we talk about the Red Scare, that's one of the things that scared Americans to death, was communists coming to America because of all these different freedoms that they were going to lose if it did.
Results continued. Communist states generally have much less freedom. They prevent the practice of religion, order certain people to work certain jobs, and prevent people from moving around or moving to other countries. People lose all rights to ownership, and the government officials become incredibly powerful.
All right, comprehensive question. Who's considered the father of communism? A, Karl Marx, B, Joseph Stalin, or C, George Washington? It is A, Karl Marx. He wrote a book called The Communist Manifesto in 1848, where he put his ideas in a book, and it was ideas and philosophies of his about communist government. And he is considered the father of communism.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 2, what is the name given to the non-fighting war between the West and the Soviet Union to prevent the spread of communism? Is it called A, the Civil War, B, the Cold War, or C, nothing? It was called B, the Cold War. That's what we are talking about in this unit, the Cold War.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 3, who had around 40 million people killed in Russia? A, Joseph Stalin, B, Washington, or C, Karl Marx? It was A, Joseph Stalin. He was a bad person. All right. In general, yes, he helped in World War II, was sided with the Allies, but as World War II was over, he did bad things. He created famines, killed close to estimated 40 million people.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 4, what did Russia become known as when they converted to communism? A, nothing, B, America, or C, the Soviet Union? And C, they were called the Soviet Union after they took over several Eastern Europe countries during the time after World War II.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
And number 5, who was the leader of the Bolshevik Party who overthrew the Russian government in 1917? Was it A, Vladimir Lenin, B, Karl Marx, or C, Joseph Stalin? It was A, Vladimir Lenin. Vladimir Lenin, he was the leader of the Bolshevik Party. He died in like 1924, 1925, and that's when Joseph Stalin took over. It was around that time.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
All right, that is all for the communist lesson today. Like I said, we'll be back next time. I can't remember if we're talking about Joseph Stalin or if we're talking about the Red Scare, but either one, we'll be talking about one or the other. So I will see you all next time. You all have a very good day.